And here we are. We're live. We're live all the way from Ireland. Okay. So we'll see how well this works, guys. You got to be patient with me. I know you are. You're a terrific audience who is very forgiving and very patient. And so far, so good, I think. But keep me posted. This is a live show, so I can see all the comments in real time. Careful what you say. But let me know. Yes, Unc Andy, I'm traveling. I'm traveling today. But here I am. I'm back, of course, as always. One, because we got to talk about LaMonica. I've got some news to share with you on none other than LaMonica McIver. And I also have some important news to bring you from Tulsi Gabbard. Here she is, just a short time ago, speaking out on Fox and Friends, talking about all this intel she has uncovered. Let's listen.
It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue with such significant impact that it should concern every American, because it has to do with the fabric and integrity of our democratic republic. That we had a situation here where in the months leading up to the 2016 election, the intelligence community assessed, and this is what the documents detail, the intelligence community assessed essentially Russia doesn't have the tools, the capability, or the intent to try to change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election.
Wow. Okay. So yet they decided to pursue that whole narrative with Russia, Russia, Russia. Anyway, right? I mean, that is actually pretty darn remarkable, you guys, what went down. And Tulsi gets into it in great detail. She has declassified a whole series of documents related to Crossfire Hurricane. This is very, very important stuff. And I realize it's taken us back all the way to 2016. But you can't understand what's going on today without understanding what happened back in 2016. So we want to get into that. Also, Donald Trump declaring war on the Murdochs. Of course, the Murdochs kind of declared war on him with the Wall Street Journal report. We're going to get into that. Meanwhile, Letitia James doesn't look like she's going to win this election after all. And you know what? She deserves everything she gets. I just gotta say. So as I said, we get a lot of headlines to get to, including the fact that LaMonica McGyver is out there begging for cash right now because she has a very big trial that she has got to somehow fight. And she's got to get the big deal lawyers to help her. You know, they cost plenty. She should take some advice from Letitia, don't you think? Letitia trying to take $10 million of New York taxpayer dollars. New Yorkers don't like it very much, to pay for the likes of Abby Lowell, who represented one Hunter Biden small, incestuous community that it is. Good to have you guys all here. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like. We begin today on LaMonica McGyver, who is out there begging for cash every single chance she can get because she did this. Unbelievable. Right, and that's the slowed down version. I mean, that kind of looks like... You know, I don't know. I do think that looks as though she was assaulting an ICE officer. And so because of that, Alina Habba is charging her. And she faces now up to 17 years in jail. I got to remember to look at this is the camera. This is the camera, Trish. I'm used to when I'm on the road looking into my laptop, but I've actually got a camera with me today. So remind me, if you see me looking down, well, occasionally I need to look down because we got to see what's going on the computer screen. But I do want to talk to you. So LaMonica McGyver, she is looking at 17 years in prison. And so she's got to raise some money, right, in order to pay for this debacle that she's gotten herself into. But again, it's all sort of her own doing. I mean, she should have listened to fate. Fate was trying to intervene. Fate was trying to help her on that one infamous day outside the Newark, New Jersey Delancey Center. Remember?
How this administration is trying to restrict Congress from doing their bare duties and the responsibilities that the people have elected us to do. What we just witnessed was just disgusting. I am very upset. I am very angry, and I am very hurt that they could be able to do something like that to us. These are people who are supposed to be officers who are supposed to protect us, and they have done none of that. If they can treat 3 members of Congress like that, just imagine how they can treat people on the street each and every day, both undocumented and people who are citizens here in this country. It makes absolutely no sense to...
Okay, I knew there was one more coming, and so on and so forth. Like I said, she should have listened to Faith that was trying to intervene and tell her, hey, go easy, go easy. But you notice her commentary there. If they can treat a member of Congress like this, like I am such a big freaking deal because I am a junior member of Congress that was recently elected, and now I've got myself up a creek without a paddle because I don't have any money to pay for my legal bills. So what does she do? She takes to MSNBC. I want to know if MSNBC is getting a cut. Like, do these anchors get like a percentage of whatever funds they bring in for one LaMonica McIver? Here she is.
The practical reality of what this means for you. How much time and how much money is this costing you?
Well, first of all, it's taken up a lot of my time, but I am still 150% dedicated to the people that I represent in the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey, and I don't want this to get ahead of that. And so that is why yesterday when I had to run back to New Jersey, go to court, plead not guilty, I literally ran out of the courtroom, said a couple of words, and had to hop on a flight back to D.C. to vote because, once again, my job comes first, and I don't want this to, in any way possible, to get in the way of that, of the work that I need to do for the people of the 10th. So that's one thing, but it is time consuming. And then it's also very expensive, right? No one's, taking up this case for free. I have to pay for attorneys. And so you have to, raise funding and get support to be able to fight them, because at the end of the day, these charges are serious. They're saying that I can face 16 to 17 years in prison, and it's worrisome at the same time, right? I'm very courageous, and I'm very, not going to back down, and I'm going to continue to do my job and hold this administration accountable.
But I need money. I need money. Okay? That's the message that we heard over and over and over again. And guess what? Apparently, and this was so sick about the whole thing, she's using this as a giant fundraising opportunity, guys. She's getting it. She just had her highest quarter ever. Imagine that. LaMonica McGyver, she gets charged with assault of an ICE officer and somehow is able to ride this all the way to the bank. I don't think so. There's something kind of wrong. And by the way, it tells you exactly what she was doing. Because remember when she was offered the opportunity? She was offered the opportunity to exit this whole thing gracefully. The Newark, New Jersey mayor took that opportunity. Of course, now he's turning around and trying to sue Alina Habba. But she said, hey, listen, just admit what you did was really, really wrong. And then we can kind of move forward. Well, LaMonica McGyver was absolutely refusing to do that. Absolutely refusing to do that. And, now she finds herself exactly where she is. But maybe that was the intention all along, right?
Well, Habba said you had declined every opportunity to come to a resolution. You said they wanted you to admit to something you didn't do. What did they want you to admit to?
I mean, there was a lot. We've had a week of back and forth with them, and I will say that I did not waver. I showed up there to do my job, and she wanted me to admit to doing things, all of these different lists of things that she said that I did.
Like what?
I mean, from things of impeding, there was some other things in there that she put in there, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But she wanted me to admit to these things, sign an agreement to them, and I'm not doing that.
Impeding. She wanted me to admit to impeding, but I'm just not going to do that because, I'm right, she's wrong, because somehow I think it's perfectly fine as a member of Congress that I go out there and behave like this. Sorry, lady. It's just so wrong. And apparently there's more where that came from. Forgive me, we have spelled her name. It's MacGyver. I want to say it with a G because, it sounds like it needs a G. It also sounds like it needs kind of like some Italian in it. La Monica, right? Like La Regina, like she's La Monica. She's just not Monica. She's LaMonica. We've been through that before. Anyway, again, out there begging. She needs money. I don't see AOC anywhere, incidentally. We're going to get to that in a moment. But AOC has her own troubles because now she's under investigation, according to Tom Homan. But here is LaMonica once again going on MSNBC saying, moolah, moolah, moolah.
That.
Yes.
What was it like to be in the courtroom?
I mean, there was a mix of emotions to be there. I mean, obviously, you know, this is a crazy situation. I never thought I would be facing charges as a sitting congresswoman. It's a scary situation too, because I'm thinking of my mom. I'm thinking of my mom who was there with me, who's like stressed out about this, right?
That's a stressed out thing for a mom.
When they're saying that you're going to face 17 years in prison, I'm thinking about my daughter who's 9 years old. I'm thinking about my husband, my family, and it's like, oh my God, this is awful. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to stop doing my job because I know why I was there and I know why I'm being attacked. And so definitely just a mix of emotions during that period of time. And at the same time, I was happy to see it moving, you know, going through the process that it's going through today. Obviously, I pleaded not guilty because I'm not guilty. And I'm looking forward to the next time being there and having the facts all laid out and really getting through this process because it's also stressful, right? I mean, at the same time, I'm doing the work of the people that have elected me from the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey. But at the same time, this is stress. It's expensive, right? Because you have to fight this case and it's a legal case where you have to have a lawyer, an entire legal team to defend you. And so it's a lot and it's unfortunate and it's unnecessary. But at the same time, we cannot allow this administration to stop us as, you know, elected leaders, Democrats especially, from doing their jobs.
I mean, the expenses is something I think people aren't really aware of. Are there...
The expense is something they're not aware of. So MSNBC is going to do their part to try to make sure that they raise money for her. And you know what? Again, successfully, they did so. They actually managed to see quite a heck of a quarter. Democrat Congresswoman facing federal charges after incident at Newark ICE facility has record fundraising quarter. So in other words, AOC may not be there for her right now. However, AOC has taught her a thing or two, right? You know, you play the victim. Letitia James is very good at this as well. You play the victim and then suddenly everybody's materializing there for you with a little bit of handout here and there. But I'll tell you, I don't know where AOC is at this moment in time, guys. I really don't, because she could have come forward. She could have defended the other congresswoman there, the junior congresswoman, but she doesn't seem to be so willing. I mean, she was willing to stick her neck out for the Newark mayor, was she not?
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Are gonna have a problem. Well, you know, Tom Homan, been there, done that, seen that. He's not interested in anything she has to say because, you know, I think she was like in diapers when he was doing this already for a living. He made it clear.
You can't intimidate me. Come on, give me a break. You know, I was enforcing him. I was wearing a green uniform, Border Patrol agent, for 5 years before she was even born. I had more than 3 decades enforcing immigration law before she became a member of Congress. I worked for 6 presidents. I've seen policies. I've seen hundreds of policies. Some worked, some didn't. But you can't deny the success of the Trump administration when it comes to border security. Again, the most secure border in the history of this nation. And I said from day one, and she knows this, you can not support ICE. Shame on you. You can support sanctuary cities. Shame on you. But you can't cross the line. You can't knowingly impede ICE law enforcement officers. That is a felony. You can't harbor and conceal, knowingly harbor and conceal illegal alien from ICE. That is a felony. And you certainly can't commit criminal trespass. You know, and as far as New York, her district, this administration has done more to protect her district than she has. The number of criminal aliens we took off the streets of New York made her community much safer. She ought to be thanking the members of this administration, the men and women of ICE, who protect this country and make her community safer. So, you know, it's politics over public safety. It's just ridiculous. She ought to love her community more than she hates Trump, because we're doing a lot to protect her community.
Well, she's got some problems now, just a few, because Tom Homan has made it clear. He actually told Benny the other day, you know what? This woman's being investigated. She's being investigated because she actually had somebody on her team that was allegedly here illegally or had some kind of visa that had run out. Tom Homan didn't want to say too much, but he admitted, you know what? She is being investigated for this very thing. I want to play this clip for you.
Here's the article of the criminal alien staffer that AOC had on staff. Maybe you could just start here and, you know, as a, as an explainer to me and to this audience, like, how's this even possible?
It's not possible, and I know that's being looked at. I can't comment on past that. I'm aware of it. We've asked ICE to drill in on that case. It's my information that there were actually. Can't really comment on. We don't know if it was illegal status or not at this point. It looks like it might have been temporary status, but I can't comment on the case because it's under investigation.
Boom. Okay. So AOC has wondered, am I under investigation? Am I under investigation? Well, guess what? You are, honey bunny. You are totally under investigation. AOC under investigation, you guys, because she may have been employing an illegal alien, somebody who had overstayed their visa, perhaps, and that is a problem. I mean, especially considering that you're a member of Congress, right? You're a member of Congress, and therefore, don't you think you ought to be somewhat more in tune with the rules? I mean, LaMonica, you think you're such a big deal. You're a member of Congress, and therefore they can't touch you when you go out and you decide to move those elbows around in your big red jacket and, tell them who's boss. Well, guess what? You can't do that. In fact, if anything, you ought to be held to a much higher standard of behavior, because for goodness sakes, you're representing the United States of America. But you know what? AOC's not that bright. We know that. The fact that she's like courting this Mandami guy, who wants to take us back to communism, give me a break. That guy's a problem, okay? But AOC's a problem. Bernie Sanders is a problem. Elizabeth Warren is a problem. We got a theme going on here, guys, with a whole lot of people with problems, including another one, not just LaMonica, but Jasmine Crockett. Trump had something to say about this the other day, and it kind of cracked me up. It's funny. I want to see this IQ test. By the way, who's your money on, AOC or Jasmine? Really? I want to know. Tell me in the chat.
AOC, look, I think she's very nice, but she's very low IQ. And we really don't need low IQ. Between her and Crockett, we're going to give them both an IQ test to see who comes out best. Now, I took my test. I took a real test at Walter Reed Medical Center, and I aced it. I got every one of all those questions right. Now it's time for them to take a test. Anyway, have a good time.
AOC versus Crockett. I'm going to put that on the lower third right here. That's what we call it in the business. Is it AOC or Crockett? Who would you guys pick? Okay, I'll just tell you confidentially. Well, not so confidentially because we're on live streaming. AOC versus Jasmine Crockett. Who would actually win that IQ test? I actually think, you know what? It might be a tie. It might actually be a tie. I think they're both equally dumb. Because anybody who would sit there and try and tell you, when, by the way, history has shown all over the world that communism has failed over and over and over and over again. It fails, and it just accumulates all the power in the hands of one group of people, which is a big, huge problem, thank you very much, and one that we're still recovering from in this moment in time here today as Tulsi uncovers all of this information pertaining to 2016, it shows you when some people get all the power, they become corrupt. And when we look back on what went down in 2016, that's what we're going to find. Tulsi Gabbard out torching Obama. My gosh, this is bad, guys. Actually, this is like, I'm looking at this and going, wow, like I feel like I'm in Banana Republic territory, because this is not the kind of stuff that the American government should be doing. But Obama apparently had some kind of meeting. He brought everybody together, all the big honchos, Bannon, Comey, all these people, because they had to come up with some kind of solution to manage Trump once he came to office after he miraculously won the election. You know what they figured out? They figured out that the Russians had nothing to do with him winning. The Russians, they did love being little SHI you-know-what disturbers, and they loved getting a big giant divide in America, and that was part of their goal, but they didn't really care who won. That was the conclusion of the intelligence, but you wouldn't know it. You certainly wouldn't know it. For goodness sakes, we had to listen to Jimmy Carter. The late Jimmy Carter get on stage and tell us that Donald Trump won because of the Russians, that they sort of handpicked him. And then we had to hear all about this dossier, the dirty dossier, for goodness sakes, that read like a thing straight out of the National Enquirer. Anyway, Tulsi is all over this. She is declassifying the documents. They just came out. I read through them on the plane all the way over New York to Ireland. I didn't sleep a wink, in part because these were very interesting and also in part because somebody was snoring next to me. And I put my earplugs in and I put the headphones on, and wow, this lady could snore. I'm telling you, like, wow. And she was like a relatively young woman. Man, I don't know what's in her future. But anyway, I read through all of this, 114 pages. I'm going to let Tulsi, however, outline how big a freaking deal this thing is.
It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue with such significant impact that it should concern every American because it has to do with the fabric and integrity of our democratic republic. That we had a situation here where in the months leading up to the 2016 election, the intelligence community assessed, and this is what the documents detail, the intelligence community assessed essentially Russia doesn't have the tools, the capability, or the intent to try to change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Donald Trump pulls off a historic victory against Hillary Clinton in November of 2016. Even in the days after that election, the intelligence community continued their consistent assessment that reflected the same thing in the months leading up to the election. All of a sudden, in the early days of December, there was a president's daily brief that was drafted. This is put together by the different elements of the intelligence community that reflected that same assessment. Russia did not try to hack the election, in essence. That PDB, that document, was pulled hours before it was supposed to be published for the president to see that following morning. That document was never published until we released it yesterday. One day later, President Obama calls a meeting of his National Security Council, his top officials, to be held on what they called a sensitive topic. And the results of that meeting, which we released yesterday, and these over 100 documents that talk about in detail how President Obama and his team, he directed a manufactured piece of intelligence that detailed not if, but how Russia tried to influence the outcome of the United States election that President Trump won in November of 2016. This document was then used as the foundation for everything that came next. It was essentially a years-long coup that was launched against President Trump before he even had the opportunity to take his oath of office and be sworn in as President of the United States. So, as you know, there was a Mueller investigation that went on for years, cost taxpayers nearly $40 million. There were 2 congressional impeachments. President Trump and almost every member of his family were smeared and attacked, faced lawsuits, depositions. High-level officials were investigated, some were arrested and put in jail. The list goes on and on about the ramifications of this, but foundational to it all was the fact that we had in President Obama and his leadership team people who did not want to accept the will of the American people in electing Donald Trump in 2016, and therefore cooked up this treasonous conspiracy to, again, try to effectively, and they did effectively, launch a years-long coup against the sitting president of the United States.
It's crazy, right? I mean, it's like literally absolutely crazy. And I know this is taking us back, but we got to go back. We got to go back. Because you can't actually, and she's right, like regardless of party, you can't actually have a system where whoever's in charge gets to call all the shots and gets to make all the decisions and therefore gets to control all power for the foreseeable future. I mean, this is wild, wild what went down. And this is why Bannon, Comey, others might be facing serious criminal charges. I mean, she's talking treason here. This is a very, very big deal, you guys, okay? A very big deal. And when you prove this out, what bothers me is that we went through all those investigations and nobody could really get to the root of what she just declassified. Remember back when Donald Trump actually sued and tried to get some of this information? And I remember Kash Patel saying, like, regardless of whether it saw the day in court, the most important thing was that they could get to first base so that they could get the due diligence, the discovery, if you would, on what exactly went down. And now that he's in office, he did come forward and say, I am going to declassify all of Crossfire Hurricane. And so this is what Tulsi is coming out with now. And it's a big deal. I want to go to the question of whether or not people are going to be prosecuted. So that's when the ball is going to go into Pam Bondi's court. And we know she's busy, but this is a biggie. And Tulsi was asked this again on Fox this morning, just a short time ago. Let's listen together to the answer.
So as voters, can we feel confident that we will actually see charges, do you think, out of this?
I'm not a lawyer. We're referring all of this to the Department of Justice. I know that Attorney General Pam Bondi is committed to bringing about justice to those who have broken the law. And in this case, again, what these documents detail, to me, in my view, cannot be explained as anything but a treasonous conspiracy. This is not so different from what we saw under George W. Bush, when we saw that manufactured intelligence claiming there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that kicked off a war that changed our country, that changed the lives of so many people like myself who went and served in those wars. The implications of manufactured intelligence are real. I would even say that what we are seeing here has an even greater impact than what we've seen in the past, because it speaks again to the foundation of our Constitution and our democratic republic, which is why accountability is so critical.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember when Ben Rhodes, who was one of Obama's top guys, was quoted as talking about the echo chamber? In other words, you could just put something out there into the quote-unquote echo chamber, and it would bounce from reporter to reporter to reporter, and before you knew it, suddenly it was true. Was this what they were trying to do? It's just that the whole thing was so bizarre. And I'm going to go back and just remind you of the chain, okay? So you're talking Hillary Clinton. Actually, in fairness, this opposition research was initially commissioned by someone in the GOP because people were running against Trump and they wanted to have something to run against him with. And so they started down this path, and then they were like, no, okay, forget about it. We don't want it. And so then the company that had been commissioned, that would have been Fusion GPS, they had already done work on this. And so they started shopping it around. And so they took it to Hillary Clinton's law firm, Perkins Coie. And Perkins Coie scooped it up. So they bought it. And so the project moved forward, and Christopher Steele was hired. He was former MI6, and he was the ex-British spy who then had some contacts, kind of, I guess, enough to kind of make it seem like it was something in Russia. And Christopher Steele went out and hired some of these contacts and had them put this piece of garbage. And it is a piece of garbage. I don't know if you guys have ever read it. I have. I'm like, whoo. Like, there's no way this is intel. Like, there's no way, like, anybody would actually take this and read this as a document that's part of, some kind of intel file, because it's so bizarre. It's like straight out of the National Enquirer. That's how it reads. Like, for a 10-year-old that has 10-year-olds aren't like that. So, but it's the grade level, like a fifth grader, okay? Like, this is not a well-written piece of documentation, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's pretty poorly written, and it's written for somebody with a very small mind, and you just want to like sit there and with bated breath, oh my gosh, so what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? Like I said, like the National Enquirer. So I knew immediately when I read this thing, this was not any kind of real intelligence. So why wouldn't our government have had the same questions that I had? Because as a reporter, I'm always saying, okay, like who's in on this? What is their agenda? What do they want? I'm always trying to understand this, which is going to bring us to our next story very shortly, the Wall Street Journal and Donald Trump suing Rupert Murdoch. You have to understand the agendas of the people involved. And so in the case of this Steele dossier, I'm like, what is this person trying to do? because it didn't seem like they were out there trying to protect the country. It seemed like they were trying to do a hit job on someone. And you could have just, put anybody's name in there. It was really weird. And so Hillary buys this thing and it gets fed into the food chain. And the next thing you know, instead of just saying, okay, well, the Russians tried to interfere in our election. And by the way, they do that, okay? Like, we're all big boys here. We do that too. We actually do it kind of well. So well that other countries are really mad at us because we do it so well. So we have to anticipate that they're going to do that to us as well. Okay, like that's kind of how the game is played. And you try and protect however you can. But ultimately, yeah, they're going to do that. And so they're going to try and interfere and they're going to try and drive a wedge right through us. And boy, oh boy, if anybody won that thing, it was the Russians. It was Putin. He succeeded because look what Obama allegedly turned around and did. And so this is a big deal. And I'm really glad he's there in office right now because we have to clean this up and we have to prevent this from happening to any future candidate. Who the heck would want to run for office? I mean, given all of that, right? And when I say you need to understand motives, I'm really not kidding. I'm not kidding because I think it's important as you consider what just came out in the Wall Street Journal. This was a doozy. All right, the Wall Street Journal is suddenly on the attack, going after Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal, owned by the Murdochs, who also own Fox. Now, Fox wouldn't do this, you see, because Fox would immediately lose all of its ratings. We saw it happen before when Newsmax was trouncing them, and then they had to put poor Martha off her 7 o'clock show and move her to the mid-afternoon and try and spruce things up, right? I mean, they know what happens when they start turning on Trump over at Fox News. So why not try it elsewhere? The Wall Street Journal, for example. And that seems to be what's going on. So this is another one of these really bogus stories. I mean, this is not as seedy or as detailed as the dossier, but it's bizarre in that it's not well sourced. And when you've got even the likes of Michael Cohen, who, believe me, doesn't have one nice thing to say about Donald Trump, saying this sounds suspicious and it doesn't sound real, I got to ask it, why are you printing stories like this? Unless you really do have an axe to grind, which it seems to be the case. So Murdoch may want to take down one Donald Trump. You see, I worked at Fox, so I have a little intel into this. The Murdochs like to control the GOP. They like to be sort of in charge of all this. I can remember occasionally we'd get a mandate, do not have Donald Trump on your show. In one case, I wasn't even allowed to have Mike Pence. Seriously. I actually fought hard and got him on the show. This was back before everything, right? But I'm like, are you serious, guys? You're not going to take the Vice President of the United States? Because somebody's got a tiff in the Murdoch family? I don't know. But how could you not have Mike Pence on the show? No, they were giving me all kinds of trouble. We don't want Mike Pence on. And then they would say, we don't want Donald Trump on. And there would be these kind of edicts that would go out, in all seriousness. So they'd try and blockade, right? Like put up this blockade. And it's been more and more challenging for them to do that. Because what happens is the viewers see through it and they've had it and they can go elsewhere. They can go, over to the streaming industry, right? Right here. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. So I think that Rupert Murdoch, Lachlan Murdoch, they're looking at this and saying, oh gosh, we got a bit of a you-know-what storm on our hands because we got a guy that we can't control. So what did I tell you the other day? I was concerned. I was concerned that you had some Murdoch-run talent. A lot of people don't know this, but the company that sells the advertisements for both Tucker's show and Megyn Kelly's show right now, that company just got bought by Fox. And who did you see out there blasting over and over? And the one I couldn't understand was Steve Bannon, because I know Steve and he's a really good guy and he's true blue and, I don't agree with him on everything, but I will tell you that Steve has the best interests of this president and the MAGA movement and wants it to succeed. So he was making a big deal of this too. That, I understand because we all want answers, right? But then I started to see it take on this life of its own. And I started getting worried. And what did I say to you guys? Listen, you got to be careful here because we're onto something. Don't let them divide us. Well, Murdoch may have sensed an opportunity. Divide and conquer, right? And so all of a sudden, the next thing you know, the Wall Street Journal is coming out with some crazy, crazy piece. We'll get to it in a second. But first, you heard it here first. Steve Bannon just came to this realization, I guess this morning. I want to play a clip from his show because he's right. And it's exactly what I've been saying. Here we go. Here's Steve.
Last night we saw it in all its ugliness. The Murdochs hate Trump. The Murdochs want to take down Trump. And this is why on this Epstein and everything, including the rest of the going after the deep state, we have to be on offense all the time. Last night they put up a phony letter, which I understand from senior sources working with President Trump. They never even showed the letter. They don't even know if they have the letter. They may be doing the letter from something that people told them about. President Trump had discussions with senior people at the Wall Street Journal, which is always the instrument they're going to take out MAGA and to take out Trump, right? The sharpest tool that they've got. They used the New York Post as more of a populist entity. And, of course, Fox News is for rhinos. But the Wall Street Journal is the neoliberal, neocon, sharp end of the stick that they come after Trump. And last night they tried to actually destroy him with what looks like a phony and fake letter. President Trump has put him on blast, put Murdoch on blast, particularly, as I have long recommended.
Yeah, he actually, in fairness, has. He has never liked the Murdochs. I would get edicts where I couldn't put Steve on either. They'd be like, no Steve Bannon right now. And I'm like, come on. Like, seriously, yeah, we this would happen. This would happen. And so I'm just telling you the lay of the land over there, okay? They don't like him. They don't like Trump. They don't like Bannon. They would love to be able to take back hold of the Republican Party. You put somebody in there. Tucker said the other day they tried to put him in there. He was telling another podcaster, actually another guy who used to work at Fox, yeah, they wanted him to run for president when he left Fox. Imagine that. They fire him, and then they're like, would you please run for president? And we'll back you in the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, no, I don't want to run for president. I don't know. Maybe they're talking to him again. Is that part of the reason? I don't know. I can't speculate too much on that. But what I can tell you is that this story is pretty weird and bogus. And it kind of reminds me, not as bad and not as seedy as what we saw back in 2016, but it's a little bit out of the ordinary. So this article came out, and Trump is pretty mad. He's suing him, I think, for $20 billion. He's like, I'm going to take down the Journal. I want to end the Journal. And I'll just say this. So what's unusual about it is that, sure, a president has never actually sued. Don't forget, when he sued CBS and won, and he sued ABC and won, and he sued NBC and won. By the way, all of those lawsuits were done before he was president. So a lot of people are saying, but he's president now. But just because he's president doesn't give you the right to print garbage. And that's wrong. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. I got my rights and I got my wrongs. And you know what? You don't just go out and print garbage about an individual. I'm very careful about even what I say. There was that thing that happened on the Jumbotron, right? With the astronomer CEO and his HR person. I haven't even run that story. You know why? Because I don't want to, because they're individuals with families and they got caught on the whatever. I really feel responsible for protecting people's privacy. On top of which, when I'm talking about someone, I want to be right. I don't want to be going out with all this innuendo, something that I think is going to, sell papers or tabloids. Listen, this is Murdoch, right? He came from a tabloid background. What can we say? I don't want to do that because that's somebody's reputation. Whether they're an individual, whether they're the president of the United States. But they're trying to say, oh, well, because he's the president of the United States, well, we can go after him. You still have to be responsible people. And in this case, it doesn't sound like they were responsible at all. You got a couple of reporters. He's now suing them individually, along with the guy who runs as the CEO. I think it's Mark Thompson. Actually, who is it? Again, I'm blanking on the guy who runs the Wall Street Journal. But whoever runs the Wall Street Journal, he's suing him. He's suing the Murdochs. He's suing the reporters. And he's suing them personally because they published this alleged letter, which, everyone's like, this doesn't even sound like him. These words don't sound like him. It's really stupid. It's like some kind of cartoon drawing, and it's some kind of imaginary conversation where they're talking about, keeping secrets, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't sound like him. He is adamant he had nothing to do with this. He looks forward to suing Rupert and the Wall Street Journal, and he wants to basically put this garbage out of business. Everybody's come out and said, here's a long thing that he sent out talking about the editor. He's suing the editor. Caroline Leavitt said that they didn't even have the letter in their possession. They're like, so what are you guys doing? Seriously, like, what are you doing? I mean, he's got a bunch of things on Truth Social. But even Elon weighed in, and Elon's like, this doesn't sound like him. I'm telling you, it doesn't sound like him. And then, by the way, don't take my word for it. Don't take Elon's word for it. Don't take Steve Bannon's word for it. Let's go to Michael Cohen, who worked for him for a whole bunch of years. And Michael doesn't like Trump at all. And even he says, this doesn't sound like him. Watch.
Well, what was your take?
I agreed with him. I've never, not once, and again, over 13 years of being by the man's side, I have never once seen him doodle. I never saw him draw a picture. In fact, I would be very shocked if Donald Trump actually can doodle. It's just not his thing. And the language, using words like enigma, that's not a Donald Trump word. I mean, he certainly knows what the word is, but it's not a word that he uses. I found the whole thing just to be odd. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody had turned around and reached out to the office and said, hey, look, we're putting together a birthday book for Jeffrey. Can Donald doodle something on there? And these are the words that we want you to use in some doodle. He then gave it to an assistant. Many of his assistants were not just good artists, but fabulous artists. And so that's probably what happened at the worst. Now, chances are, I don't know the answer. And that's the whole problem with this entire story. None of us know the answer. If you despise Donald Trump, you want it to be true. If, in fact, you like him and you support him, you want it to be false. Mm-hmm. Why should any of us have to guess? There's no reason for us to be guessing. And in fact, I agree with kind of what Dan Goldman said. Just release the file. And if you want, I'm more than happy. I'll read the file. As somebody who's been critical of him, let me read the file. I'll come to the American people and tell you exactly what it says in there. Because that's what America wants. That's what America needs.
Well, I think that's actually going to happen. So Anna Paulina Luna met with the president extensively this past week. We're going to get her on the show next week. So we'll make that happen because she's got a lot to say on both this and, of course, the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. She's calling for his resignation. Anyway, she had met with him and then she went and met with Pam Bondi, and now they're releasing some of these things. You saw that Pam Bondi is actually coming forward and saying, yes, Mr. President, I will go ahead and release some of these documents. They're trying to still protect identities, et cetera. And they're also trying to be somewhat mindful of this stuff being, I don't know, fake? Like, at least, in terms of that particular letter, they got to be somewhat cautious about that because these are people's reputations. Again, like I just say, like somebody's reputation. I hate this new world where you can just trounce all over people in a second, right? It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. And so I don't care if you're the president of the United States or if you're Joe Schmo, who works down at the plant. You don't deserve to have your reputation trashed with fake news. And this kind of sounds like, for goodness sakes, you guys don't even have a copy of the letter that you're going to print, for goodness sakes. What's that about? And then you look at, they're going to the White House and the White House is saying this is not true. You can't print this, and they printed it anyway. Interestingly enough, one of the reporters, do you know that one of the reporters on that story, okay, here we go, 6 degrees of separation, you guys. One of the reporters allegedly used to work for the wife of the guy who is the founder of Fusion GPS. She had her own little intelligence bureau going where she'd do her own little bit of dirt digging. And she had this guy who then went on to the Wall Street Journal to become a DOJ correspondent. This guy was working for her. 6 degrees of separation, don't you think? I'm just saying. Here's the deal. Like, if they had anything on him, trust me, it would have come out. Oh, they really didn't want him to win. They put Kamala up. That's how much they didn't want him to win. They were so worried about Biden. Biden might have actually had a better shot now. Who am I kidding? No one had a shot. No one had a shot because look what you guys did to the economy, for goodness sakes. Look at what you did. You own that, buddies. Like on the Democrat side, they just, they printed money. They did everything wrong. It was like the Costanza Seinfeld thing. Whatever Biden wants to do the opposite. And you might actually stand a fighting shot. But he's going to be busy right about now. Because as I said, he's now got Pam Bondi releasing some of this stuff because she's just disgusted. He's disgusted. Everybody's disgusted by all of the innuendo and the false reporting and the allegedly fake stories. None of it adds up. And you know what? We got a good thing going. Don't we, guys? I mean, we got a really good thing going. The market's doing great. I love it. Crypto's doing great. We got the Genius Act through the other day, the Genius Act, right? And we're moving forward. I know some of you guys don't like crypto, but I'm telling you, it is the future. Just trust me on this one. Trust me. I hate to say it. I don't think I've ever been wrong. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. My husband gets annoyed when I say that, but I'm like, honey, you know what? Especially when it comes to investing, which is why I want you to go check out my newsletter, 76 Research, 76research.com. Use code word dollar. That way you get $1 a month for the first 2 months. I told you, I shared a report that somebody sent in, just an email. Somebody was so excited because this particular person is up, like she said, she was up like 56%. And one of the things that we recommended, I'll just give you a hint. It was STRK, a convertible bond offering. Anyway, we got lots of ideas. We just put out a note the other day on inflation again and what it means if we get a change in the head of the Federal Reserve. But you can go through some of the portfolios. There's lots of good stuff there. You know, one of the things, if you look at these portfolios, you see that energy is climbing. Some of our energy picks up 55%. One of the reasons for that increase in energy prices, if you would, or not just prices, but in the stock prices, I should say. Energy has come down significantly ever since Donald Trump came into office because he said, guess what? We're going to open it all up. We're going to just drill, baby, drill, right? And that's going to be great for our national security, for our economic security, et cetera. But the other thing to keep in mind right now is that oil has a bigger and bigger future, especially when it comes to shale. And you know what? I get so sick and tired of people trying to say, like, oil's bad, and, you know, energy's bad. I was speaking with someone actually here in Ireland because I'm doing a little bit of reporting and I'll talk some more about it this week because I do want to canvass the place a little bit more and just get a little bit more perspective. But immigration is very much a challenge that they have here. The other thing that they have is sort of the environment thing going on, right? Where everybody, the Green Party wants to protect absolutely everything. And it's not working for them. It's just not working. And look, it's a great country and they've got a robust economy, but some of the regulations creeping in has started to hurt them. The taxes as well. The taxes on energy prices. It's just out of sight. Well, listen, you know what? That's because people try to suppress energy. And I'm just going to tell you, it's not all that bad. Okay? Think about it. Air conditioning. It saves people's lives, right? I mean, all kinds of things save people's lives. You think of all the equipment you use in a hospital, like all of this stuff runs on energy and runs on fossil fuels. And I'm kind of sick of hearing how bad it is because we need it. You know, storm system warnings, all of this stuff. This is all thanks to energy and fossil fuels. So, you know, you can learn some more about this. The good folks over at oilfacts.com have really done a lot of reporting on this. And I just want to throw that out for you because, you know, when your friends are like, oh, you know, fossil fuels are so bad. I'm like, no, don't forget like how much they are actually helping this economy, right? Prairie is the company that behind this, and it's NASDAQ company, and they are a shale company. And they're I get it. They're sick and tired of like getting a bad rap because they're shale. I mean, this is wonderful technology that is helping us in the future. So let's balance it all out. We can do this in clean ways and we can benefit ourselves and the world. So go take a look there at oilfacts.com today to learn more. I will say this, you know what? None of this stuff really matters to Trump voters. It's been proven just in the new poll that we got out the other day. I played this for you guys yesterday, but I got to play it again because it's so good. And I love this guy over at CNN. He's like the only good one at CNN because he gets so excited about stuff. I mean, he was talking about Elon Musk, I think, yesterday. And Elon Musk has very bad poll numbers right now because of the split from Trump. And he kept saying, geez, Louise. And I'm like, I love that. I haven't heard geez, Louise in a while. That's an oldie but a goodie. Anyway, here he is talking about the enormous success of Donald Trump with his base. Because you know what? We know that we're on the right path and we're not going to be deterred. Not by Murdoch, not by anybody who's trying to interfere, not by Jamie Raskin or Adam Schiff or any of the Dems that want to make this into a bigger issue. Watch.
I mean, look, I think this one surprised me a bit because of all of these complaints online going after Trump and the Epstein files. You might think his approval ratings were going down with Republicans. If anything, they're going up. Republicans who approve of Trump, look at our CNN poll. The prior one, 86%. The one out this week, 88% were Republicans. How about Quinnipiac? The prior poll, 87% approve of Republicans. This week out, 90% with Republicans. If anything, Donald Trump's approval rating has gone up since this whole Epstein saga started. He is at the apex or close there too in terms of his popularity with Republican voters, Epstein files, complaints or not.
You just proved that not everything online is real in real life.
Who knew?
Amazing.
Twitter and X are not reality.
Is there any reason that you can find that this hasn't taken hold and hurt him?
Yeah. I mean, on X, all you hear about is the Epstein files. But how about out in the real public? Republicans who said the top issue was Epstein case. The answer is one, and not 1%. One responded. This is a great little finding that Ariel Edwards-Levy, who of course is part of our polling unit, found. Just one single Republican said that the nation's top problem is in fact the Epstein case. Not much of a surprise that therefore Donald Trump's approval rating has not suffered with Republicans because of the Epstein case. Because the bottom line is most Americans say it's not high up on their priority list.
That's so great. I mean, and that's the truth, right? Because what is on Americans' priority list? They want to make sure that they can put food on the table, that they can save a little money, that they're going to be able to retire one day, and that their kids don't get indoctrinated with a whole bunch of crazy woke stuff. Okay? Not that hard. The Democrats make it hard. They make it hard on themselves. I'm telling you, they could have a much easier future if they just actually would embrace some kind of normalcy. If they embraced humanity for what it is. It's what the beauty of capitalism is, right? Because it embraces sort of the good and the bad. Like we recognize the bad and we take the bad and we make it into good. I mean, capitalism isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. I mean, we could still fix a few things along the edges. And I think there needs to be some work done to try and create a stronger, more vibrant middle class. But this is exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do. In fact, prior to March 2020, someone was asking about when I left Fox. Yeah, that was March 2020. I was furious that I saw the market tanking 2,000 points. I'm like, this is ridiculous, for goodness sakes. Am I going to shut down the country? You need a strong economy to fight a thing like this, do you not? And look, don't get me wrong. There was a lot we didn't know back then. And I know we all lost people, but still, when you go back in time and you look at the misinformation that we were fed and you consider how hysterical people became, it was almost like another way to go at him. And they just used everything they could. So everything became political. I would talk to Democrats who would say, oh, I'm not going to get the shot if Donald Trump is in office. And I'm like, serious? And then the same people were like, you got to get the shot and you got to get it again and again and again. It became just so hugely politicized and it was so wrong, right? Because if you want to protect the country, you got to protect its people. You got to protect the middle class. You got to be honest with people. You got to be truthful. You got to be transparent. And so I'm telling you, the base still loves him and they're not going anywhere. Absolutely not. And so I think it's really critical people stay together at this moment in time. One other story I wanted to get to, the state-funded media, ladies and gentlemen, is going bye, 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 bye. Did you see what has just come out? It looks like NPR, and PBS are no longer going to have the big funds. They're no longer going to have the big funds. And that's actually gets some people really, really, really kind of worried, including those over at CNN who just say, gosh, it's the end of an era. This is awful. What are we going to do? Meanwhile, they themselves are struggling with their own job cut prospects. Because story after story, you'll see there's more firings now to come at CNN. Let's see. Oh, this one. This was in the Washington Free Beacon. They're going to be laying off more people there. The talent's bracing for deep cuts to their salaries, to their staffs, possibly to their own jobs. A lot of reporting being done over at Puck as well on this. And they're talking about how they can't compete in this new world with, what do you know, YouTube. I was at the airport in New York before leaving for Ireland, and a couple of people came up to me, and it was really interesting because I've had that happen before, and people have come up to me, oh, I used to watch you on Fox, I watched it on CNBC, I remember you from Bloomberg, and this time it was, I watch your YouTube show. YouTube's taken over the world. This is where it's at, and it's raw and transparent, and I got no prompter. And yet, I think there's an authenticity in the reporting that everybody values in a way that's much bigger and better than what you're going to get at the CNNs of the world, or what you're going to get at the ABCs and the CBSs and the NBCs or the MSNBCs of the world. Anyway, Warner Brothers Discovery is the parent company of CNN, and they're preparing for this big restructuring. And what are they going to do with their cable networks? They're going to siphon them off into the part of the company that nobody wants. The rest of the company is going towards streaming. And so they're going to be doing all kinds of cost cutting. People are going to lose their jobs. It's going to get ugly. Apparently, morale is really bad. Morale is so bad because they're moving them to offices that are quote unquote SHI idier. Okay, so the offices are going to be even worse than the offices that they have now. And then I love this one. They're going to have to submit expense reports. God forbid anybody at CNN actually have to submit an expense report. Times are tough, right? But when you put on garbage TV, the viewers know it.
We are normalizing a government agency disappearing people. We are normalizing, we're talking about it like it's no big deal that they are kidnapping people and transporting them to concentration camps, both domestic and foreign. I think that's kind of insulting to, I think it's Jewish insulting what they're doing. It is not insulting to Jewish Holocaust. I find it insulting that you could even fix your mouth to defend.
Oh my gosh, right? And and so on and so forth. I mean, they got rid of Joy Reid over at MSNBC, but hey, guys, they still have Rachel Maddow. And they still have that guy who's on at night. What's his name? Larry something. Didn't he used to be a producer or writer for a scripted law show? Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. And then they get the guy that looks just like Rachel Maddow. Like spitting image of Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes. I don't think they pay him very much, so he might be okay. He may be safe. I don't think the guy who used to be the writer on the legal show necessarily is making a fortune either, but who's making allegedly the big bucks? Rachel Maddow. How do you justify that? This company's about to get spun off. It's called Versant, kind of French sounding, right? They're going to have the fancy new name for the cable entities of NBC. Or Comcast, I should say. So Comcast doesn't want anything to do with these guys anymore. So they're going to take them and they're going to spin them off. And how's that going to create more value? I mean, when it's a dying industry, I'm just being honest. Unless they can stream. But you see, here's the trap. They can't. They can't actually sell commercials when they stream in places like YouTube. So if you're watching this show, I mean, yes, I have commercials. We have our sponsors and we're very thankful for them. But you'll sometimes have like a commercial break, right? Where YouTube will come in and have a commercial break. They can't do that. If they put their content on YouTube, they're not allowed to do that because they already have agreements with the cable companies where they're already paid. And that's a decent revenue source. So how do you turn that revenue source off and take a gamble and say, I'm going to go out there and stream? You can't really. I guess you could create a whole other streaming network, and they're trying to do that. But of course, they don't want to have to do it on YouTube because they'd rather do it on their own venue, and that takes time to build. So they're kind of up a creek without a paddle, and I don't know how they're going to ever turn this thing around, especially when they're paying the likes of one Rachel Maddow something like $25 million. They also have Morning Joe, which charges a pretty penny. And so consequently, they're struggling. They're struggling just like Stephen Colbert was reportedly struggling. Stephen Colbert was allegedly on his show losing something like 30, 40 million bucks a year. Amazing. I mean, they had a budget of like 100 million and they were losing at least 30% of it. I mean, to lose $30 million. I don't even know how you spend all that money on that show. It's really kind of a simple show to produce if you think about it. But, Stephen Colbert is commanding a pretty penny, and then he's got all his staff, and then they got to have the live studio audience, and they got to have the audience wranglers and all the people that are booking the audience and telling the audience when to clap and when to laugh and all that stuff. Reminds me of another show, doesn't it? The View. The View may also soon find itself unable to support what it's doing because in a new medium, in a new world, it's just gotten too darn expensive. But that's good. It's good for us over here, right? On the Trish Regan Show. By the way, I'm going to just make this point. It's gotten hard lately, so I would love it if you guys can subscribe. I think this is something, and Don was talking about this in the chat the other day, about how when you get closer and closer to 1 million, that it becomes more challenging to hit that milestone. So I don't know. I mean, this is all new territory for me. So I've been asking some of my friends, they're like, yeah, because, it's kind of a big deal when you get to 1 million. And so it gets harder, with each rung that you're going up. Leslie, I saw you here today. Yes, we did hit 900,000. You were right. You called it. We hit 900,000 yesterday. Actually, while I was live on the air, it was super duper awesome. So we miss seeing you for that, but I'm glad you're here today. And I would just say, listen, I'm making the call out to all of you guys to do your part, to like the show, to subscribe, to share, to comment, all of that, because as we get closer to this milestone, it gets, at least from my perspective, incrementally harder. It is. It's just for whatever reason, and I don't fully understand how all this stuff works, it's gotten harder. So I need your help. I need your help to really push this. I'm here no matter what. The guy in the airport said that to me, actually. He's like, Trish, you're traveling. Oh, but you'll be on the air, right? I'm like, yeah, that I would never miss a day. And a lot of what I'm doing right now as well is gathering information. So I've got a lot I want to tell you specifically about where I am right now, which is in Ireland, because they're dealing with some of the issues, the beginning, if you would, of some of the issues that we've had to deal with in the United States. And I suspect that in the next couple of years, it's going to become a much bigger problem for them. But anyway, do your part. Make sure you tell everyone, guys. I want to make sure that we're heard. We're here together in this, through thick and thin, and on the front lines of history in a pretty epic way. And I can promise you one thing and one thing only. You may not always agree with me, but I'm always going to tell you the truth as I know it, the truth in that moment in time. And I do my best to give you all sides, because it's important that you hear it all, right? You have a better argument, frankly, if you hear it all. I learned that way back in the day. You put a thesis, a college paper together, you get your thesis, and you do all the reasons why something works, and then you always got to have the other side. Because if you can't show the other side, and frankly shoot it down, then it's not as complete a thought or an argument. So you get it all here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am going to be live, as I said, every day. It is good. I'm seeing some new faces here. So please, please do me a favor and make sure you subscribe. I will see you back here on the show again tomorrow. Great to have you here. Until then.